Hello and welcome to my channel. Try This is a series where I break down interesting commanders, and today I'm covering Zopandrel Hunger Dominus. Zopandrel is a 4/6 Phyrexian horror with reach that costs 5 green. At the beginning of each combat, they double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. For 2 Phyrexian green mana and sacrificing 2 other creatures, you can put an indestructible counter on it at instant speed. While having unnatural growth in the command zone is the Timmy Commander dream. If you're the kind of player who likes catchphrases like methods for blockers and just turn them sideways, then this is the commander for you. 7 mana for a commander is a lot, but in mono green it's not a problem at all. This is basically turn 4 reliably if we build the deck right. Like Jetmir, this commander is more like a finishing effect than anything. We don't gain much by it being on the field until we've already set up a bit. You could build Zopandrel any number of ways, including tokens and Voltron, but I'm going to mostly focus on go tall creatures here and beating down my opponents in combat with them. I'm not going to focus on ramp too much here. It's mono green, there's so many options you could include, and there's no reason to call out some basic cards. I will point out Uvenwold Hydra, Candlepecked Wraith, and Beanstalk Giant though. Pretty much any creature that cares about our land count for its power and toughness would be good here, since that's how green reliably ramps. The Hydra and Giant both have ways to grab lands while also caring about this, so they'll likely be huge creatures. The Wraith might seem like an odd include as there's plenty of other ways to ramp, but it's an unblockable creature that we have the option to use as ramp. With our commander out, that's 4 damage always getting through, and will likely be more since we have plenty of ways to buff it that I'll talk about later in the video. More land matters Chads are Ashaya, Cultivator Colossus, and Multani. These are huge creatures in general, and with our commander out, we'll likely turn them into creatures that are hitting for around half of a player's starting life total. Having around 10 lands out shouldn't be that difficult, especially when Ashaya is out. Though it's good at ramp, mono green isn't exactly known for its card draw, but since we're in a go tall deck, we can utilize some bombs like Rishkar's Expertise, Momentous Fall, and Return of the Wild Speaker, all of which care about the power and toughness of our creatures. Momentous Fall makes us sacrifice something, but if they're gonna die anyway, then it's worth getting some card draw from them. The same goes for Greater Good if we need more massive card draw, while Aran Frostfang and Toski are some great cards that synergize with our combat-focused deck. Aran gives Death Touch as well to synergize with the many trampling creatures we'll be slotting into the deck. Some examples of huge creatures to add are Galta, Hydra Omnivore, and Impervious Greatworm. All of these are pretty terrifying to face down before we double their power and toughness. The latter 2 don't have any form of evasion though, so a Brave Squirrel could take one for the team to block them, but don't worry, we'll take care of that soon. A great part about our commander doubling power and toughness is that it makes Galta super cheap to cast, along with cards like the Grey Henge and equipping Belt of Giant Strength. Sitting around $65 at the time of recording, the Great Henge is an easy budget cut, but it does do everything we want in this deck. It gives us mana, life, card draw, and also makes our creatures bigger when they enter. I'd cut it for more ramp or something if you don't want to spend the money on it. The belt has some mixed utility here. Like, it doesn't really help any of the creatures I just talked about, but we could equip it to our commander, Toski, or any of our smaller creatures to also turn them into huge threats. We could threaten commander damage this way, since Zopandrel also doubles its own power and toughness. We just need evasion at that point, and that's where cards like Shadowspear, Luxodon Warhammer, and Scepter of Celebration come in. These cards could enable any of the massive creatures we have, like the Greatworm I mentioned before. The Scepter also enables a go-wide strategy. It'll make a massive amount of tokens, then our commander also doubles those tokens' power and toughness. That will be threatening lethal in 1 or 2 turns if we weren't already. We don't need equipment to enable these huge creatures though. We could use some of the creatures themselves. Aggressive Mammoth, Nylea, and Thunderfoot Baloth are some great enablers for the rest of our deck. Nylea will likely persist having indestructible, and the Mammoth is a huge creature itself threatening 16 damage after our commander doubles it up. The Baloth will not only enable our creatures with evasion, but it gives another +2/+2 anthem that our commander will also double up. Green has quite a few enablers like these cards. Ulvenwald Oddity, Flipped, Pathbreaker Ibex, and Bellowing Tangleworm are probably the best of these. Ulvenwald's flip side gives an Anthem, Haste, and Trample to our board. Tangleworm gives Intimidate, which you could get mixed results in. Green is a pretty popular color, so there could still be blockers, but shutting down blockers from the 4 other colors is pretty effective, I think. Ibex is a finishing effect that will likely win the game for us even without our commander's help, since it gives Trample in addition to buffing our board based off the highest power creature we have. With so many huge creatures in our deck, it will likely give us avenues to outright win the game. Unfortunately, go tall green decks have a big downside. We have a lot of high-profile targets and will likely be targeted by our opponents throughout the game. Ways to stop us are pretty obvious for most players, and most of our creatures are susceptible to removal and board wipes. We can try to solve that with cards like Heroic Intervention, Rapid Vigor, and Tamiyo's Safekeeping. These are cards that are all great ways to try and save our board or a specific creature in Tamiyo's case. Though we won't always have them in hand when we need them, which is why adding Regrowth, Bala Ged Recovery, and Noxious Revival is a good idea. They can not only get back our creatures to hand, but other utility cards we might have lost earlier in the game also. They'll let us get back things like Helm of the Host, which is always terrifying, as we can start duplicating things like Hydra Omnivore, or even our commander. It's a lot of mana to enable the Helm, but it's truly one of the best cards in the deck, as we'll have so many dangerous creatures to make copies of. Though it's not as near as flashy as many of the other cards in this list, I think one of the best cards you could add is Conqueror's Galleon. This rather obscure vehicle from Ixalan is one of my favorite pet cards from back in the day on Arena. It flips into a land with a ton of expensive and sort of inefficient abilities, one of which is a 6 mana instant speed regrowth. In a mono green deck susceptible to removal effects, I think it's worth including. When we're in a color that's not known for its card draw but known for its mana, then we can always use it to draw cards while also paying for the regrowth over and over. For example, we can use essentially 9 mana to continually cast Heroic Intervention to save our board state once per cycle. I think a lot of players would scoff at a card like this, since we need to hold up so much mana to really utilize it, but it leverages mono green's best attribute. If any color can afford to cast things on its turn while also still holding up 7 mana for that expensive regrowth, it's mono green. I didn't cover every card in this deck, or every suggestion I have for Zopandrel, so if you'd like to see the rest, check out the link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. Comment below on cards you think synergize well with this commander, and if you have any suggestions for commanders to build in the future. Thank you so much for watching, good luck, and have fun.